Hello fantastic creatures, I'm Fantasims and welcome to my channel. I normally focus on building very intense fantasy and sci-fi builds and also celebrity lookalike sims, particularly my Harry Potter collection. But I thought I would deviate from the norm and do a Sims news and speculation video about some really interesting information for a possible subscription-based service in the upcoming Sims installment, which could be Sims 5, it could be something else entirely. But before we get started, let me issue a huge disclaimer. None of this information has been confirmed, only hinted at as a possibility. This is just speculation, so take everything discussed with a grain of salt. And don't grab your pitchforks and attack each other or the sim gurus. Let's just have fun discussing. Now, this information comes from the amazing Sims community website, which I will link below. They reported on some official Maxis job listings that have surfaced in the past week that suggest they are not for Sims 4, but an entirely new Sims game. Keep in mind, we've been promised a few more years of new content for Sims 4, so don't worry, this new Sims game will likely be a couple more years in the making or longer. Now, in the listing for a new game designer position, one of the requirements for this role is to be excited by and participating in new business distribution models like subscription services and cross-platform games. This has got many Simmers on social media to start talking about the potential for the next Sims game installment to be subscription-based rather than purchasing individual packs like it is with The Sims 4. So it could be like a rental or streaming service where you pay a monthly fee to have access to the game and its additional content. Now, I know other Sims news channels have been discussing this topic, but I wanted to dive in a bit deeper to the pros and cons of a potential subscription-based service. So let's start with the pros. Something that could be beneficial is that everyone would have access to all the packs, although the reason most people don't own all the packs is for financial reasons, so they likely would not be able to afford a subscription. So that might not really be a pro for the majority of players, except that if the monthly fee was cheap enough, then people would have access to all the packs a lot faster than they normally would. They'd have it as soon as it came out, whereas many Simmers cannot purchase packs straight away until they can afford them. So in other words, you wouldn't have to save up for a pack. But in order for it to be cheaper than how it is now with purchasing packs individually, it would have to come to around $100 a year or less, otherwise it's cheaper to purchase all the packs. Plus, bear in mind that many people wait for packs to go on sale, so for those who only have all the packs because they got them on sale, you're looking at needing the subscription to be around $50 a year or less, so that's less than $5 a month. So this list of pros is kinda also turning out to be more of a cons list. But something no one seems to be discussing is that a subscription service might not just be for the Sims game alone. The job listing also mentions cross-platform games. So this might be hinting at something like PlayStation and how it's become Sony's game subscription and streaming service where you pay like $9.99 per month to have access to hundreds of games from PlayStation 4, PlayStation 3, PlayStation 2, and you can stream them on your console or on a PC without having to download any of it. And many major gaming companies actually have switched over to streaming services, so it's likely that this is where The Sims could be heading as well, because it's the growing trend for gaming platforms at the moment. Now, this could actually be beneficial in two ways. First, you'd have access to multiple games for around $10 if priced the same as PlayStation. Second, I don't really know a lot about computers, so correct me if I'm wrong, but it might be easier for lower-end computers to handle a more intense new Sims installment if it's streamed through the internet versus relying entirely on your computer's hardware. So this could mean that EA, which for those of you who don't know, EA owns Maxis who make The Sims, well, EA might have plans to incorporate all their games into a monthly subscription fee like PlayStation, so if they also charged around $10 a month, it wouldn't just be for the new Sims game, but all the games made by EA. Now, if streaming through an internet connection is the only way to play The Sims, then this might not work well for those with limited or spotty internet connection. Plus, there are many countries like Iceland, for example, whose internet connection is often routed from the US through Great Britain, and so connection can cause games to lag if connected through multiple countries. However, streaming online might not mean that there wouldn't also be an option to download the content without internet access. Just like you can download a rental movie to your electronic device and after the rental period ends, it automatically removes itself. Let me know what you think about this in the comments below. Moving on, one major pro could be this though. New content could end up being released more frequently. Would they even need expansion packs, game packs, and stuff packs anymore? They might still put out big gameplay packs because it would still take time to flesh out and design an integrated gameplay theme that has depth and detail, but they might do more mini content releases like Sims Mobile and other mobile games. Another possible pro could be more emphasis might be placed on keeping the base game updated and glitch-free, because currently from a business standpoint, they don't really make any money off of improving the base game, well, other than potentially attracting new players to the game. But with a subscription fee every month, part of that money would go towards constantly refreshing the base game and keeping it up to date. Now, in the same job listing for a new game designer, it also requires familiarity with custom content and mods. This could mean that their goal is to not only continue providing the ability for players to mod the game for Sims 5 or whatever it's going to be called, but also it could suggest that instead of just releasing packs, the Sims team might provide more options for build, buy, cast, and gameplay. Instead of waiting for an entire themed pack, they might provide something like the Sims 3 store where you can have continual access to new things to add to the game. I have mentioned to Simmers before that I would love if stuff packs were just stuff for build, buy, and cast, and then make gameplay the main focus of game and expansion packs. That way you could have constant access to new styles through stuff packs without having to rely on a game pack or expansion pack for a specific aesthetic, and it would mean that the gameplay depth of the larger packs wouldn't be diminished by them focusing so much on build, buy, and cast in those larger packs. Let me know if you agree with that idea or disagree with it. I just thought it might help. So if that makes sense, it would be like they could quickly put out an urban cast pack, for example, with cool urban outfits that doesn't require a whole city living pack, or a historic architectural stuff pack for players like me desperate for architectural objects without having to make a whole pack about it. Anyway, a monthly subscription partnered with a game developed around the knowledge of custom content and mods could mean that they would do just what I suggested, provide constant content on an ongoing basis without having to wait for an entire pack. And this could also work for gameplay. Each month could release a new interaction, a new animation, a new relationship dynamic that keeps the game fresh and deepens it more and more over time. Thus, the game could actually end up being deeper than any other iteration of the game before. I mean, I know that might be too optimistic, but what I could see happening is this, for example. Let's say everyone wanted a farming pack, which a lot of people do. Instead of waiting a couple years to craft a cohesive pack around that theme, they could add elements of it each month. So one month they could introduce the farming mechanism to the game with a barn and new gardening features. Then the next month they might add cows, later on horses, etc. until after a while you have all the features you would have had in one pack, but in installments instead of all in one go. This could also be helpful not only because players would not have to wait so long to start enjoying the things they want, but it could also help them get the right feedback as they work on new content. So for example, the things players voted for 2 years ago are not exactly what players want anymore. Times change, tastes change, and unfortunately, since it takes them a year or more to make bigger packs, by the time something is released, the players often don't want it anymore. At least with releasing new content in installments each month, they would better gauge what players are actually interested in. However, this is just speculation. I'm not saying this is what would happen, just that I could see this as a plausible way of doing things, since so many mobile and subscription-styled games tend to have monthly themes and smaller releases of content on a continual monthly basis. Anyway, that's all the pros I can think of. Please share any pros and cons you think of in the description below. Now to the cons, but before we get into the cons, another huge disclaimer. The job listing only says the person must be excited by and participating in the kind of business models like subscription services and cross-platform games. The emphasis is the word like, meaning similar to, not necessarily exactly the same as a subscription-based service. It does not specifically say Sims will become subscription-based, and it also doesn't say that even if it were to become that it would be exclusively a subscription. You never know. They might provide a subscription service as an option for players, but still grant Simmers the ability to purchase packs individually. Who really knows? Let's not get mad at the game when we don't even know all the facts yet. We're just exploring the what-ifs and the pros and cons of those what-ifs, so let's remain objective. There's a huge difference between being passionate and being hostile. Let's stay passionate about The Sims, sharing both our praise and our concerns for the game with humility and kindness, and not the hostile, overly emotional rage towards others that I so often witness on Twitter. So this channel will never be about throwing shade. I just thought it would be fun to discuss Sims speculation together. Okay, now that my mom moment is out of the way, let's dig into the potential cons of a subscription-based service. So obviously the biggest one being the cost. Would it end up costing more in the long run? We already touched on this before, but to spell it out further, I'm assuming it would be around $10 considering most subscription platforms seem to be around that price, which is actually far too expensive to make it worth it for most players. And even if that $10 included all of EA's games, that's only beneficial to players who actually play the other games made by EA. EA. If the subscription service is not for all of EA's games and only for The Sims, would it be one flat rate that gives you access to all packs? Or would there be tiers of payment if you only want base game, for example? Like, many people only have base game because they got it on super sale for super cheap. I mean this with the utmost respect. But we have to keep in mind that many players around the world have low-income jobs or even have well-paying jobs but just don't have enough spare money. The cost of living is expensive. So many players would be excluded from the game if they had to pay a monthly fee. Also, a majority of Simmers are teenagers and young adults who most likely cannot afford a monthly subscription. This next con is probably more of a psychological reason, but there's just something about owning the packs versus essentially borrowing or renting them through a subscription. When you buy a pack, it's yours forever. 10 years from now, I can open up The Sims 4, hopefully it's still playable, and play it on a whim if I want to, but I wouldn't be able to do that with a subscription because once I stop paying the fee, I'd lose all the content I paid for. The last con that I can think of is that some players don't want to be tied down to playing the game every month. Many players go months without playing the game, and many players don't want to own all the packs, so they'd essentially be forced into paying the cost of owning all the packs, even if they don't want to, and even if they don't play regularly. And those are my thoughts on the issue. Are there any pros and cons that I've missed? Do you agree with these pros and cons? Do you have more to add? What are your thoughts? I'd love to hear what you have to say. Again, keep it civil and respectful, please. We just want to show that we love each other, even if we disagree. And also, again, keep in mind, Sims 5 is not likely to come out for at least a year or two, and considering the Sim gurus have clearly stated there are a few more years left for The Sims 4, in my opinion, it's likely The Sims 5 will take more like 2 to 3 years before being completed. Based on the job descriptions that you can read in the Sims community post, it seems like there's a lot more they want to accomplish with Sims 5 or whatever it ends up being called, which is exciting to hear, but also means that it will take quite a while to implement all those features. Remember that nothing is set in stone. The Sims team are probably looking into all the ways they can try to improve the game in the future. Sometimes change is good and sometimes it comes with complications. I think it's a healthy exercise to think of the pros and the cons of everything in a constructive way. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it an encouraging thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell to be notified about fresh content. As always, my fantastic creatures, I love you so freaking much.